Jordan Peterson went on Bill Maher's show and asked a question about Trump supporters. So this is interesting here. Let's take a look.
Yes,
I mean,
please.
I've been listening to all of this about Trump and watching how these conversations go in the U.S. And I have one question about it. I mean, there's all these people in the U.S. who are on the conservative side who are aligned with Trump for all sorts of reasons. And there's all this tension around his presidency and attempts to pull him out of his office for various reasons. And what do you think will happen if that comes to pass? What do you think will happen to these people that have identified with Trump? And like, how is it that Democratic types, for example, are holding out their hand to say to these conservative types, sort of like, welcome back into the fold? Because it looks to me, from an outsider's perspective, that your country is polarizing in a way that's not good, and that, you know, people are going after Trump. And I understand that. It's not like I don't understand that, but there's all these people that elected him and that are identified with him, and they're not taking this well, you know. And so, well, they're not. It's not. And you know, you might not think they're very bright and all of that, and you know, they're backwards and all of those things. But you know, you need to have respect for the rest of your citizens, and if your country isn't going to pull itself apart. And I really see this happening from an outsider's perspective when I come down here. And I lived in the States for a while, and it wasn't like this before.
If he was just a regular Republican president with Republican policies, I would say you'd have a point. But what is so alarming is the assault on democratic norms, what we were talking about here today. Things like threatening to put people in jail, threatening to put journalists in jail, wanting military parades, praising dictators, wanting to be a dictator. I mean, we are at a moment here. I try to impress on the people who are too young to remember a lot of presidents and a lot of elections, how incredibly different this is than anything that ever came before. I never much liked the other Republicans who were in office, but I have a renewed respect for them. George Bush and Mitt Romney would not have tried to pull this shit. They just wouldn't.
Listen, when you say this is unlike anything we've ever seen before, that's factually untrue. And the exact examples he gives there are the perfect examples that disprove his point. They don't prove his point, they disprove his point. So he says, you know, hey, praising dictators, this is not something other, Republican presidents would do. Not only have other Republican presidents done it, other Democratic presidents have done it. Dude, that's par for the course for the United States of America, especially post-World War II. That's kind of our thing. Now, that, by the way, that's not me excusing that and saying it's good. In fact, I say the opposite. I say it's really, really bad. But the difference is I'm intellectually honest and objective in that I can point out the obvious that it's been happening under all these different presidents. Maher can't point out the obvious anymore because he's so blinded by his Trump hatred that he's like, no, it's just Trump. But it's not just Trump. That's just not fucking true. Bush and Obama goddamn near gave the Saudi heads of state hand jobs walking through the Rose Garden. How blinded are you by this? The United States supports 73% of the world's dictatorships. That's under Donald Trump. That's under Barack Obama. That's under George W. Bush. When you say, oh, this assault on democratic norms, I have a newfound respect for the other Republican presidents. Do you really? So George W. Bush waged an offensive war against a country that didn't attack us, killed a minimum 200,000 civilians. He tortured Bill. Forget the Eighth Amendment in the Constitution. He tortured. How about that for getting rid of a democratic norm like no torture? The most basic human rights ever. Shit that's laid out in the goddamn Magna Carta from the 1200s. George W. Bush tortured. And then you have the nerve to say, other Republican presidents, I have a newfound respect for them because it's only Trump who does this. Other presidents wouldn't do that. You mean like getting rid of democratic norms like, right to privacy and protection from unreasonable search and seizure when George W. Bush started NSA spying, collected everybody's information, warrantless, illegal spying like that, Bill? See, that's the point, is that he totally loses all perspective and objectivity when talking about Trump. And I like the way that Jimmy Dore frames this. Donald Trump makes, there's a lot of people who are, nominal lefties or Democrats who Trump just hits that lizard brain and they just can't help themselves but make shitty arguments. Assault on democratic norms, it only happens under Trump, it doesn't happen under others. Dude, Barack Obama, it's a well-documented fact that he had a war on whistleblowers. Okay? I mean, other presidents wouldn't. Really? Go talk to fucking Edward Snowden, a guy who exposed crimes of our government, and he still has to hide overseas. Why? Because Barack Obama was going to prosecute his ass if he came back. So, and I'm not saying Trump is better, because Trump isn't going to fucking, what's he going to do? He's not going to protect Edward Snowden. My ass cheeks, he's going to protect Edward Snowden. So, I'm not saying Trump is good. I'm saying the others are really bad also, but he loses perspective because he's so blinded by hating Trump. And, the perfect example of it is saying he has a newfound respect for other Republican presidents, which is laughably stupid. And saying it's only Trump who's assaulting democratic norms and threatening journalists and praising dictators. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, having said all that, I don't necessarily agree with Peterson either, because Peterson argues, well, look, what are you going to do to hold out your hand to Trump supporters? You need to have respect for your fellow citizens. Well, yes and no. So I guess I half agree with him, half disagree with him. And now, I've done countless segments on how, yes, you should reach out to Trump supporters, but only the ones who are reachable. I'm not naive. I'm not like a gullible moron, and I'm trying to, find common ground with David Duke or Richard Spencer or idiots like that. There are some people, yes, it's fair to say, it's not a crazy assertion that there are some people who are too far gone. There are some people who voted for Donald Trump on the basis of him calling Mexicans rapists. They're not sending their best people. They're rapists. I assume some are good people. So if somebody voted for Trump because he called Mexicans rapists, because he said he wants a, quote, total and complete shutdown of Muslims coming into the country, or somebody voted for Trump because he said, we have to take out their families. We have to take out their families. Talking about the families of terrorists, not the terrorists themselves. And by the way, suspected terrorists. So he's talking about a global assassination program. Stop and frisk, even though it's massively unconstitutional because it cracks down on minority communities. If somebody voted for him because of the bullshit, hawkish garbage he said, or the deregulation that he wants to do, or the tax cuts for the rich, or all that shit, well then no, there's no reaching those people because they're ideologically too far gone, and you're not going to have a point of agreement, so you have to disagree with them and call them out and fight them in the realm of ideas. So some people are too far gone, and I don't want to reach out to those Trump supporters. The ones that are worth reaching out to are the ones who are populist. The ones who voted for him because of the anti-establishment stuff and because of the, hey, I'm going to protect Social Security and Medicare. I'm going to keep your jobs in the country and get out of TPP. So in other words, it's not just this vague amorphous thing of like, let's reach out to all Trump supporters. No, it's when it coincides with our principles and the principles that are good for the American people and help working families and all that, that's when you reach out to them. And it's only going to be some of them, not going to be all of them. So it's both things. You have to reach out to them, but reach out to them where your values collide. So reach out to them on, hey, trade deals that outsource jobs are terrible. Let's make your wages higher, and let's be pro-union, and let's do a new deal, and stuff like that. So it's half true, half untrue that you should reach out to Trump supporters. You reach out to them, on issues where you're helping everybody and improving working families' lives and ending war and stuff like that, because half the time Trump made anti-war arguments. You don't reach out to the ones who are too far gone ideologically, if you will. And what I find interesting is, Jordan Peterson, he's kind of made a career out of being I'm going to be the straight shooter guy, and so there are aspects of Jordan Peterson I agree with, and then aspects I disagree with. The part I'm okay with and the part I don't disagree with are like his self-help shit. If it helps people, okay, great, then abide by his self-help shit. And good on you. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I also don't disagree with his anti-social justice warrior stuff and how he doesn't like the speech police on campuses. I totally agree with him on that. So those are the aspects I agree with him on. The aspects I disagree with him, it's his politics. And it's his religious beliefs, okay? He's a pretty religious guy. He's open about that. And he does a lot of bullshit sophistry in the process of bending over backwards to give the metaphorical interpretations of his religion, Christianity. But then for politics, it's the worst because he's just against protest. Like he's spoken about how, hey, you need to clean your room. And he makes this whole big spiel about individualism and responsibility, which I part agree with. Who doesn't agree with individualism and responsibility on some level? But then he takes it a step too far and talks about how, protests are bad and stop protesting and go clean your room. Like, who are you to try to fix society? Yeah, who are you? I don't know, maybe the civil rights movement when they did that. Seems like they were right to do that. Yeah, young kids protesting. A lot of them probably had messy fucking rooms, but who cares? They're fucking fighting for the right thing in the street. So he's really deeply anti-collective in a fundamentalist sense that I think is totally wrong. But what's interesting is he's portrayed himself as this guy, I'm the teller of harsh truths. That's his whole, that's his whole aura and persona. But then weird, when it comes to Trump supporters, all of a sudden, I'm the harsh truth teller becomes, no, don't be a harsh truth teller. What you need to do is show respect for your fellow citizens. Respect? What happened? You do these long diatribes where you do nothing but, break the neck and shit down the mouths of the postmodernists and the communists, as you call them. He's against what does he say? The postmodernists and the neo-Marxists or whatever the fuck he says. So when it comes to people on the left that he disagrees with, he's got no problem telling the harsh truths and being unapologetic. But when it comes to Trump supporters, you need to, quote, have respect, and you need to, quote, hold out your hand to Trump supporters. It's a double standard. And it's a double standard because he harbors more sympathies with Trump supporters. In fact, he said he would vote for Trump. I heard a clip of him talking about how he said, I would go into the booth having every intention to vote for Hillary Clinton, but in the final decision, I would probably end up having voted for Trump. And his reasoning is, Hillary's pandering to identity politics, and he thinks the logic of identity politics leads to, like, Mao's fucking massacring of millions of people. Listen, I don't agree with identity politics. I shit on it more than anybody else on the left. And I think oftentimes it's used as a distraction away from serious economic issues and anti-war issues and stuff like that. So I'm no fan of identity politics. But the idea that, like, therefore I'm going to vote for the guy who, said he wants to kill civilians in the Middle East, like, that's terrorism. I'm going to vote for the guy who's pro-terrorism because, man, those women and black people are getting too big into their identity. It's like, that's a terrible fucking logical breakdown of the situation. So it's weird that he's the Mr. Truth Teller, but when it comes to Trump supporters, he's like, let's show respect for them and, quote, hold out your hand to Trump supporters. Do you want to hold out your hand to the postmodernists? No, you don't. So listen, the truth of it is, I think both things are true. You could be a truth teller, but also reach out to people where it's reasonable to reach out to them, where they have sympathies towards your positions and there's some crossover. So that's my general breakdown of it. And also, fuck Bill Maher, because he keeps making dumber points week by week. And now he's at the point where he's just doing apologetics for George W. Bush, who's a goddamn war criminal, and that's shameful, and Bill Maher should fucking look in the mirror and cry at his reflection because he's a goon and he's an idiot.